SABC correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease is standing with the president-elect from inside the General Assembly at UN headquarters in New York. Sherwin, over to you.
Lulu, thanks so very much indeed. And essentially we're standing in the belly of the beast, as it were. And as the 73rd session of this General Assembly gets underway next week, Monday, things will get increasingly busy here at the United Nations in Manhattan in New York. And of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa, you were just doing a piece on Zimbabwe. President Mnangagwa, of course, making their debuts as presidents, as heads of state of their respective countries here in New York. And as you mentioned, Ecuador's María Fernanda Espinosa is only the fourth woman who will preside over the General Assembly, and the first woman from the Latin American Caribbean region. She joined us. Madam President-elect, congratulations, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Sharon. Very happy to be here.
A personal triumph for you, but also a triumph for the region, but I imagine also an indictment on just how slowly we are progressing in terms of women's empowerment and gender equality. What do you make of your election?
Well, I'm very proud to be representing my country, Ecuador, to be representing the Latin American and Caribbean region, but even more proud to be the first woman ever in the history of the United Nations to preside over the Assembly as a Latin American and Caribbean woman, and only the first woman in 73 years of history of the organization.
You have literally, I mean, it's probably an understatement to say that you've hit the road running since your election in June. When you received that endorsement, you said you were dedicating this win to women in the world who participate in politics and who face discrimination. What will your broad priorities be over the next 12 months?
Well, one of them, of course, gender equality. This is going to be an overarching, cross-cutting issue. Every single day of the work of the General Assembly is going to be devoted and dedicated to women and girls that suffer discrimination, that are victims of violent conflict. We will dedicate the presidency to them, to the women of the world, to girls that don't have access to quality education. It's to them, but the theme of this year is going to be to bring the UN closer to the people and the people closer to the UN. We need to make this organization more relevant. I have come up with 7 thematic priorities to work 7 days a week. Because when you speak about refugees, when you speak about AIDS, when you speak about people suffering of the devastating effects of climate change, it doesn't stop on Friday. So we need to deliver.
But it begs the question about why the UN lost touch in the first place. Why do you think it did?
Well, I think it's a matter also of communication, Sherwin. Sometimes we speak in a self-referential way, with full of acronyms. The work we do is very important, and very important to people, to combat poverty, to eradicate hunger, to combat AIDS. It's extremely important for the lives of people, for the livelihoods of rural women and girls, and it's very relevant. But the way we do work, I think we are suffering a communication deficit. So part of my responsibilities would be to translate the work of the United Nations to bring the organization closer to the people. And also the reform process. We are undergoing a very strong structural reform that is going to enable the organization to be closer to where the problems are, closer to the field.
I would argue, Madam President-elect, that communication would be one facet, right? The other facet is also results. And if you look at organs like the Security Council, for example, confidence over the years has been waning in institutions like that. What do you make of the reform process that has become so key to the success of this global organization?
Well, the reform is a process that is more holistic. We have 3 pillars on the reform that was proposed by the Secretary General and then negotiated by member states. It's a reform on the peace and security architecture, a reform on the development system, a reform on the management arrangements of the United Nations. This year is going to be very challenging because we are going to be implementing the reform, which is very, very important. I am using an acronym for my presidency, which is the DARE acronym. Dare to change, dare to do things better. Dare as D for delivery, A for accountability, R for relevance, and E for efficiency. So I agree with you, we need to apply the DARE acronym. In this case, I'm using an acronym myself, but to say that we can do more and better together.
Well, I would argue that countries, certainly within the intergovernmental process, have been daring to change the makeup of the Security Council since as early as 1993, when the first resolution was passed in this General Assembly, where the Secretary General was told to go and explore with member states, how this would look. 25 years later, we have an intergovernmental process, negotiations that started in 2007. We still do not have any changes to the fundamental structure. Is there a greater role that the President of the General Assembly, yourself, could play in this process?
Well, basically, one of my 7 priorities from Monday to Sunday is revitalizing the United Nations with 3 components. 1, implementation of the reform that we already mentioned, revitalization of the way the General Assembly works and delivers, and also, of course, Security Council reform. Security Council reform is a very divisive, contentious issue. It is true we have 25 years of, this process has been going on
talking
for a quarter of a century, if you put it that way.
Sure.
But I think it should be very much a member state-driven process. You cannot force it, you cannot push too much, but you have to lead the process and make sure that there is progress made. It's not an easy question. It would be very naive to say that in 1 year I'm going to solve the issue. It's very contentious. It's very, I would say, divisive at times. But the process is going to continue under my leadership. I will appoint 2 co-facilitators to co-chair the IGN, the intergovernmental negotiations, and I will make sure that the process continues and develops, and hopefully will find the widest possible acceptance among the membership.
Madam President-elect, we talk a lot about threats to the multilateral system, the international governance order that we've come to appreciate around the world, particular countries being more divisive than others. Do you have anyone in your viewfinder in terms of undermining this process, and how do we counter it?
Well, I hear that multilateralism is under threat, that we have weakened the efficiency and relevance of the United Nations. But you see, leaders are coming next Monday.
Sure.
And we have a record. I understand that there are more than 120 heads of state and government that are coming to New York to address the General Assembly, hundreds of ministers from around the world to participate in the 2 very important high-level events, one on tuberculosis and another one on non-communicable diseases. So the House is going to be absolutely packed with the leaders of the world.
And, of course, the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit, right?
And the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit on the 24th. And we are now having difficulties putting everybody together and giving everybody the opportunity to speak, which means that there is interest, that the organization is relevant, and that the world is responding with greater political commitment and global action and collective action to face the global challenges, climate change, the health challenges such as tuberculosis, the issues that are connected to climate change, to peace and security. So the leaders of the world are responding, are finding that to come to New York to the General Assembly is something that is part of their agenda, and that's a very positive message.
But are you then saying that multilateralism is not under threat?
I would say that we need to do more and better. We can always deliver more and better. That's the DARE acronym. Don't forget about that DARE acronym that I'm going to be using a lot this year. But what I'm saying is that, of course, we need to deliver better. We need to bring the organization closer to the people closer to the organization. We need to implement the reform process. We need to tell the world that we are relevant, that we are able to for quick responses to global challenges, and the leaders of the world are going to come to New York to address these messages to their peoples, to the people they represent. So it is under threat in the ways that people and the public opinion, they are crying for more and better from the organization. And I think we're fit for purpose. We can deliver.
Some people do argue, though, that the United States, the largest, the superpower in the world, the largest economy under President Trump, poses the greatest threat to the multilateral system today. How do you view the United States?
Well, I see that it's the host country, and it's very important that we have a space for dialogue. But this House is about different positions and bringing, closer the different views, perspectives, and views. And I think that every country has its own sovereign right to join consensus, but also to express dissent. And I think that we have to respect that, but we also have to push for more dialogue, more agreements, more consensus.
Said like a true diplomat. Final question for you. You take off your hat as Ecuador's foreign minister. You are now going to become the president of the General Assembly. What are you most looking forward to?
Well, I would say to really contribute to the organization, to work hand in hand with member states, to make the difference, to really also strengthen the role of women in politics. I think I have a unique opportunity to show that when we really are given the opportunity, we can exercise our leadership in a very strong way. And I'm really looking forward to that, and to work with my colleagues here, with ambassadors from all countries, with leaders from all the world. And I have a very strong program of work, 7 priorities, a very thorough strategic plan for the year. And I'm really hoping that I will be able to contribute to the strengthening of the organization.
Well, you'll need all the help you can get. We wish you so much good luck over the next month. As you said to me earlier this week, it's going to be hell, given the difficulties we face. But congratulations and all the best in your term as head of the 73rd session.
Thank you very much. And we count very much on the role and the support of the media and of the press, of course.
We thank you so much. Ecuador's former foreign minister, the president-elect of the 73rd session of the General Assembly, María Fernanda Espinosa Garcés. She will be sworn in on Monday and will take the gavel from outgoing President Miroslav Lajcik. It's back to you, Lulu, in Johannesburg.